So we're talking about your personal branding and how do we make time to create content that aligns with what you stand for and is able to reach the audiences so that when so you can share all the things that you're learning and other people can shorten the gap on the journey on how to be more productive, how to organize your time, because you're doing all of this work and refining and digesting so you can give just the choice nuggets to these other people.
Right.
So that means you have to be a public figure. So anytime you have a company that's a personal brand, it could be Richard Branson, it could be, you know, you name it, Anthony Robbins. It always starts personally because your personal brand eventually is the starting point for your company's content marketing efforts, right? It always starts personally until you get to the certain point where you have enough followers or believers or disciples that eventually they spread the message, then it's no longer you personally, but you have to be the one that jumpstart that. So if you think about personal branding.
Is it you like first where there's no objective or goal, it's more of like you kind of, I don't know the question, sorry, not objective or goal, but you're not trying to like sell anybody anything, you're trying to like
you're teaching, you're sharing openly.
You're exactly.
Because you have a mission. So this ties back to the 9 triangles, right? We said that this is the mission of what you stand for.
Right.
This is the why.
Yeah. There's no, at this point, there's no monetization, there's no
I'm going to draw that in.
Right.
Yeah.
But
and so we talked about the why goes to the how, and the how is the marketing machine in the 3 marketing triangles. And then it moves to the what of the mechanical execution on efficiency and learn, do, teach, and you know all these other sorts of things. So we're assuming that this is in place. We're assuming that there's something that you stand for, which is how to maximize your productivity and get a head start in your career by using these techniques that are born out of software and the education you have and these common concepts that you learned from, you know, Napoleon Hill and Andrew Carnegie, and, you know, Dale Carnegie, all these people, right? Okay. So the megaphone of personal branding, which ties in with content checklist software and learn, do, teach, and assuming that you have something you stand for, which you know ties into Analyst Business Partner, which is creating disciples of the thing you have so good people want to share it, right? The whole word of mouth kind of thing. First off, you have to connect your plumbing. And this is the mundane stuff. Before the water can flow, you have to connect your blog, you know, your Twitter, your LinkedIn, your Facebook, your Quora, you have to connect all these pieces. So when the content starts flowing, you have the same handle, you're able to track everything, there's like, you know, the analytics are in place, you just like, you just need to establish the plumbing. Without the plumbing, which can also be thought of as a foundation, you're not going to have, your content is not going to be effective. A lot of people, they just start pushing content out there randomly. And that doesn't work because no one sees it. It doesn't tie back to an overarching concept or theme, right? If you think about SEO, there could be the keyword that you want to rank for, which is, you know, learn languages. And that breaks down into learn Spanish, and then learn, you know, business travel, and how do you order in a restaurant, and then and so it just, each of these things goes down into this content tree that eventually, you know, stands for all, like this little thing is like, you know, how do you get through customs in Paris because they, you know, they're mean to you or, you know, whatever, like stuff that eventually, you know, rolls up through these different personas. These are all personas, right? This is a persona, it's a journey, right? It rolls up into this whole thing like learning.
Feeds the mission.
Yeah. And so the same kind of thing is true here. If you've got a content strategy that you think about like the magnifying glass with the sunlight where you like burn the ant or make the paper go up in flames, this is the same thing. Because all of these are amplification levels, not a pyramid scheme, because there's no downline, but you're finding a scalable way to get other people to share and to create content. So they're creating content and then you're running it through this magnifying glass in this way, but you have to have the plumbing that enables that to take place. And if you're creating content, initially you're creating content because you have to be the one to jumpstart this thing. And you're sharing your schedule. You're saying, hey everybody, here's my schedule. Monday through Friday, this is what I do with learning, this is what I do with personal maintenance, and I run 30 minutes, and I also go to the library, and I also do an hour a day where I do my lunch and learn, and I also do, then you're putting a structure in place where you're gathering content, and as you're doing these things, right, we think about learn, do, teach. As you're learning, you're also putting into practice, and then you're writing about it.
Yeah.
And every piece of content that you create, it could be like this video.
Mm-hmm.
That can be transcribed through rev.com or these other places at $1 a minute, and now all of a sudden you got a blog post. And if you have the plumbing in place, you're able to post it on YouTube and all these other places. So all of a sudden, you've taken one piece of content and you've multiplied it by a factor of 10
Mm-hmm.
because it's so powerful, right? And so everything you just keep multiplying across. And when other people pick up on it on these other channels, because you got a piece of content,
Mm-hmm.
then they're going to start to retweet it. They're going to comment on your blog.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to rank in search results. It's going to, and so this generates more follow-on
Mm-hmm.
because then somebody important, because you retweet it, you say, hey, so-and-so that, I forgot that guy on YouTube that you pay for his videos.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe he replies and says, wow, point number 3 really resonated with me. Or I had a question about this one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you're building community because you put it out there on these different channels, right? And then this in turn spawns more content because then they produce content and then you start, pulling these other people in to this stuff because they see it all rolls back to what you stand for because your content keeps linking back to your core mission statement, document, video, whatever like that one thing is that is the purest, most concentrated form of Dave LaPlante.
Right.
Right? So your little content strategy is not a corporate editorial strategy where, oh, this month is like vacation stuff.
Right.
That's our theme. No,
Right.
that's corporate. Personal, you don't have the luxury of having like a whole team of people and all these tools and all. You have to think more guerrilla-like. And that means in the course of just doing stuff, you have to be really lean and nimble.
Yeah.
So as you learn new things, like you stop the audiobook because you have your like 3 apps in one on how you like digest stuff and source books and use Amazon to buy stuff because so-and-so recommended this book to you. And well, as you're doing stuff, you stop for a minute and you say, hey everybody, I just want to share this little tidbit, this little bite-sized piece of content.
Right.
And then you plug this into your machine and it fits your overall content theme, which ties back to your mission.
Mm-hmm.
So the more people that believe in this and they like the processes that you put together,
Mm-hmm.
the more they're going to want to follow the same stuff. And as they follow it, they're going to say, yeah, I follow Dave LaPlante's 10-step checklist on how to, read 100 books in 10 days, and
Right.
like whatever, how to speed read, how to whatever. There's a checklist of things, right? Because as you're doing this, you're creating checklists at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And checklists are nothing more than taking the knowledge that you have. Because what you've done initially is you've tried all kinds of stuff and you're like, you went over here and over here, like over here. You're basically saying, wait, hey guys, I spent years reading this book, that book, I did it this way.
Right.
And now I figured out this is the way to do it. This, this is my process.
Right.
That you're constantly creating processes, which is the whole content checklist software thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you go content checklist software, your content is born out of execution. It's like breathing air, right?
Mm-hmm.
Every time you're doing something, that's another content opportunity. You're
Mhm.
writing about it. And then you stick it in here and it ties in with all your plumbing, so it gets automatic distribution. Right? You post on your Facebook and you can use things like if this then that and
Mhm.
Zapier, where anything you post to Instagram automatically
Mhm.
gets posted to Facebook, and like that. Without being spammy, there's
Yeah.
different ways of doing that kind of thing, right? So your execution generates content all the time that's based on this. Like if you just like most people, when they blog, they just randomly blog.
Mhm.
Well, that's like unfocused sunlight. But if you have this execution and anytime you have something like, oh, this one thing just struck me, I just saw this video, I talked to someone important, and I talked to Catherine and she like showed me this one thing, and this is what it is. And then in your mind, you're like, oh, this is exactly where it fits. This fits into this subtopic, which fits into this major topic, and that's how it relates to the thing that I
Yep.
stand for. Any piece of content, any kind of learning, that's why I like the whole thing with like speed reading, I'm trying to read as fast as I can. That's a little baloney because what's important is that the content that you have isn't just like stuff like this.
Right.
But any piece of content you have connects into your tree so that it becomes this holistic summary of integral, like makes sense Dave's content thinking.
Right.
Because without this stuff making sense, you're just like reading this book and that book and oh, this is a neat article, and then you're like all over the place randomly looking at fads instead of, wait a minute.
I'm sourcing information and material that feeds up to the.
Yeah, you're constantly thinking, anytime you have a new piece of information, you examine it and you say, how does this fit into my
Yeah.
worldview?
Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it was a
So
waste.
you
and I
reject
move,
it.
exactly.
So you're filtering for gold, right? You
Right.
might have to digest 50 articles to pull out 1 or 2 nuggets.
Right. Yeah.
Because there's a semi-permeable barrier here to decide, like, is this accept or reject? You know? And once it fits in here, you're like, you have everything all nice and organized, so that it turns into checklists, right? So the content turns into checklists. And so here's my little 5. I've tried all these different ways. Benjamin Franklin, how many different ways he tried to invent electricity until eventually, And so now this is a checklist on how to do this, and here's another checklist on how to do that.
And that's what people want. People want this, like, more often than just, because there's so much content right now. So much content.
It's
People
random.
Exactly. People need focus.
They need digestion of the content.
And it's not just 10 easy ways to do something. The checklists have to ladder back up to the theme.
It's got to be
that
sequential.
is relevant to them.
Yeah.
The theme has to be relevant to them, because the more specific you are.
Most people's checklists are just, here's 10 random facts.
Right.
Because those are really easy. The top 10 lists are the worst. But here we're saying a checklist, our version of a checklist is, here's the 10-step process on how to bake a cake, on how to assemble a car. Like, it really requires, it's not just randomly 12 things, because if you're going to bake a cake, you have to, like, get the ingredients, you have to mix it, you have to heat it up, you can't just, heat things up and then later mix things. Like, you have to do it in the right order, right? So the whole point of a checklist is a process that's sequentially linked, not just like 10 random facts.
Right. Sequential. I like that.
Yeah.
That's
so the whole point of a process and a checklist is you figured out a way to achieve a goal. So we said goal, content, targeting. Everybody has goals. As a business, you have a goal. Personally, you have a goal. I want to run a marathon, lose weight. I want to speak Spanish. And so if you take the achievement of a goal, like this overall goal, I want to make more money. Okay, that's great. Be more specific. Well, the way to do that is, I want to get this kind of job. Okay, well, if I want this kind of job, then I'm going to get this kind of job, I then need to, here are the 3 things I need to do. And then to do this thing, I need to, I need to dress nice, I need to get an education, and then to do this, I need to do this. So anytime you have an overarching goal, you can break it into sub-goals and break the sub-goals into tasks, right? And the tasks are checklist-based items. So what you've done is, as living proof of showing how you're doing stuff, because as you're doing it, you're creating content, you're creating checklists at the same time, saying, this is how I accomplished this goal. And if your goal content targeting rolls up into your mission, everyone's like, yeah, this is consistent, this makes sense, and there's integrity in what Dave is saying, because I know that in this whole, like, maximize the value of your life, because I want to make more money, I want to be more productive, I want to be a better person, I want to help other people, I want to, like, life hack and do 10 times more, I want to be more positive, I want to have better relationships. Like, all of a sudden it sounds like, whatever. These are all little sub goals, and then you have checklists that are based on proof, because you're generating content based on this execution. You package up this checklist or into these series of guides. Then you turn around and you can sell these guides. And so you have a landing page, right? So this is landing page A, B, and C. And landing page A says, hey guys, this is Dave. I spent the last 3 years, I've been studying 6 hours every day, and here's a list of all the resources that I've gone through. It would take you 3,000 hours to go through all the stuff that I went through. But I went ahead and already digested all this stuff and condensed it all the way down to a checklist of things that you can follow without having to read all this stuff and understand the principles on why this one you do before that one and how you do it this way versus that way. I already did that work for you. So if you want it, put your email in the box on the side, and this is my gift to you, right? I've done all this work. I want to give this, I want to help you out and give this to you, right? And so this is what you use. Build your list. And then, of course, the whole power of building your list, and you market your list, and then against the list, you sell coaching, or you say, hey, did you really like that list I gave you? Would you like that? I got a paid product for $79. If you like I know you really like this one. Now, I got this paid one, number D or E, or a mastermind program, or whatever I'm trying to sell.
Maybe I might be jumping the gun here a little bit. My gut feeling is, at that point, like, it's hard to do that without the following. I can go straight to building the list, but again, if it's still early, I don't have the authority. Still without the authority to that.
Who says you don't have to have you don't have to have personal authority here. Actually, I didn't extend to the last part here, which is amplify. Let me explain this piece, right? Because if you go out there and say, I'm an authority before you've done all the other work, then A, you're not an authority because you don't have the knowledge and you haven't put in the time. B, you're not perceived as the authority either. So you have to be the authority because you've
crushed it.
And you have to be perceived as the authority. You need both.
Right.
Some people are perceived as authorities, but they don't actually, and they're called charlatans, and those people are bad. I think a lot of the internet marketing crowd is a lot of those people who just beat their own chests, right? But you want to actually have the goods, and then be perceived as having the goods. So the way you're able to bridge that from here to here is, look, you're reading all these other people's content, and you're a big fan. You say, hey, so-and-so, I really like your stuff. And then what do? They reply back saying, wow, thank you so much, or wow, that was so cool. They do.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable.
Awesome. So then you curate that, and you assemble their things into, here's 7 reasons why, or here's tips from these other people. It's not a checklist. Just because, let's say there's 7 people that you talk to, and you say, wow, so-and-so, I love what you said about this, and I love what you said about that. I'm writing a blog post about this. Would you mind giving me 1 sentence that I can add to my article about this? And they say, why sure, blah, 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 blah. And then they might actually write a whole paragraph. And then you do this a couple times because you've retweeted them, you've consumed their content, you've been writing about their stuff. It's been distributed, they see it, right? Then you say, hey, so-and-so, another so-and-so, man. Because then they start to know who you are because they start to see this stuff. You say, hey, I would love to interview you for an article on whatever. Do you have 20 minutes on Skype via Time Trade or whatever? Like in 2 weeks from now, I'd love to interview you for 20 minutes and talk about these 2 things, which you happen to know they care about because you have alignment. Your mission has alignment with their mission.
Right.
Now all of a sudden, you produce this content, and then you pushed it through their content marketing. It doesn't matter if it's on their blog, your blog, guest blog on theirs, they blog on yours, whatever. It doesn't matter where it lives. Because when you publish this thing that has these other people that are high power, and they already know who you are because you've already started to do this initial work before you start to reach out to demonstrate you have initial cred. What happens when person A and person B sees this thing where you're uplifting them as like an expert and you're kind of like doing PR for them by sharing their content? They're going to turn around and share it and retweet it and all that. And what happens when they do that? That creates something we call implied endorsement. They've just vouched for you because you went through all everybody loves getting their ego stroked. The most valuable, most important people, they love getting their ego stroked. So that's a whole like Dale Carnegie thing.
That is out of Dale Carnegie.
Yeah. So you do that, and not in a manipulative way, not like the Robert Greene laws of power sort of way.
This is the real way.
Yeah, but that's because you actually honestly believe in this. Because if you didn't believe in this enough, you wouldn't have put in the effort.
There's no malicious intent. It's all back up towards we're both going for the same goal.
Yeah. So they're not enemies. It's not zero sum. It's not a competitor.
Right.
Yeah. So then they do this, and then they're amplifying you. And then the magic is, this is one I like a lot. This is the Facebook for $1 a day. Okay? Because now you've been building audiences, and you can target the people who work at Forbes, at Stephen Covey, at the Wall Street Journal, all these other places, and you amplify the content that they have said about you. And they see it, and this causes way more traction to occur here. And once this happens, then this thing generates tremendous momentum.
Facebook for $1 a day.
This is influencing the influencer.
Right. You can take a little bit of content, amplify it via ads.
You can manipulate any audience you want.
Pushing to their piece of content.
So let's say you speak at PubCon.
Right.
And you want to be known as an SEO person, because maybe SEO is part of one of your things on why it's important to build a personal brand.
PubCon published me.
Yeah. So you got an article on PubCon, not on DaveLaPlante.com or whatever, right? Then what do? You spend $1 a day. You target all the people who are related to this, who work at PubCon, who work at search engine strategies, who work at Google, who work at, not people who like search engine marketing, not people who like Mashable, but people who work so you can get further distribution, right? So we've demonstrated that by That's how we get distribution on Fox and NPR and CNN and Wall Street Journal and LA Times. Like, we have been quoted like crazy in all these places, because whenever we get a quote here,
Right.
we immediately turn around and we amplify it. And then the media thinks that we are an expert in this thing that we stand for.
Right.
Provided that all of our articles, and if they read this article, and we've done it right, and we've thought about how our content fits into like this overall theme, then we're linking inside that article, not for SEO purposes, even though there's obviously an SEO benefit, but we're linking back to these other things that link back to this, so they know what we stand for. So
Right.
everyone gets funneled up into this.
Mhm.
Not because we're SEOing it to try to rank on a keyword, but because we're trying to make it very clear that we're Chick-fil-A and we do chicken sandwiches, and that's like our thing, chicken sandwiches, chicken sandwiches, chicken sandwiches. Here's our process for building chicken sandwiches. It's always the same. That way it's always, you know,
I love how you don't miss
repeatable
a beat.
excellence.
Like, this is a process that is automatic.
it's
The people who
the
miss
core
the
is
beat,
this, is the checklist.
The people who miss the beat, the Facebook one a day, that is baked
Yeah.
into the process. That's like, you don't miss that.
And so the what is the mechanical execution. This layer, this is like the foundation of a skyscraper. If you don't build the foundation, the whole thing just,
Right.
right? So we call this whole what, this is what kids are missing. We call this repeatable excellence.
Mhm.
So if you think about the why, a lot of people can buy into a mission because they like to solve poverty, because they want to improve themselves, because they like the environment, like whatever.
Mhm.
And they may even kind of understand the how.
Mhm.
You know, they're like Uber because it's cheaper and it creates jobs, it fights the taxi cab authority, it's like all about the little guy, and it's really cool, and it's a mobile app, and like there's all this kind of stuff, like all the stuff that's like benefits, right? Like benefits versus features, right? Like why it's good, people believe in this, right? Here's the why, and then here's all the things that kind of support why, you know, the content that supports this. But if you're going to actually deliver upon what you say you're going to do, you have to have these checklists. And so the standard operating processes, the processes, the checklist, the logic, without this logic, your content ends up being some random thing like that.
Right. And I think that's what most people fall short on.
Yeah, so they're like blogging every day.
It's like the execution,
yeah,
right?
It's monkeys randomly hitting typewriters hoping they're going to get Shakespeare. You know,
Right.
it's not going to happen.
Mhm.
Because everything's got to be focused. The whole, you know,
Mhm.
the magnifying glass with the sunlight must be focused through this. Then, when you are producing content and you bring in these other people and they like, yeah, Dave, totally, like these amazing authors, you know, John Assaraf, you get him to agree that this is, yeah, you know, and so he tweets you or whatever because you attended his webinar and you're like, yeah, and you wrote a summary of it and you showed it to him, and so he promoted it out. Now all these people you've co-opted into your community and your pyramid.
Right.
And it's not that they're yours or you're theirs or anything like that. You have a common goal. And so anytime, and because you're so clear about what you stand for, anytime those influential people come across your topic, they say, hey, you know what? You really should see Dave LaPlante because he did this whole thing. Like, it's very clear to them, your personal branding, right? What it stands for. So if you've got this plumbing in place, this is the weight of the, you know, if you're gonna build this giant skyscraper, the plumbing has to be strong enough to support all the stuff you're gonna stack on top of it, right? Depending on how big the thing is you're trying to own.
Yeah.
Are you trying to own learning overall, or are you trying to learn personal branding, or are you trying to own like some little like niche kind of thing, like a hobby kind of thing, or are you trying to do a thing where lots of other people can be involved? In that case, your plumbing's got to be much stronger, the foundation's got to be much stronger to support that whole structure, you know, 80 stories high versus just like a 2-level shack or whatever, right?
Because it would be tough if you're just a one-man army. Keep that in mind too.
So if you have a process that other people are doing and they're creating the content, then you become more editorial. So the first level you go through yourself, because you have to learn to teach, you have to do it all yourself initially to pave the way, to be able to create the initial processes. Other people, because they've consumed the content, they believe in the vision, which means they're not about the money. You don't pay them. If you pay them, then all of a sudden it's tainted, right? Then they come in, they do this, they're achieving their goals because they're following these checklists. That creates positive feedback in a cycle. Now all of a sudden you've empowered what effectively is like a franchise, because when you have checklists, you know, McDonald's has checklists, and that's how the french fries are the same. Doesn't matter whether you're in Dubai or San Francisco, the french fries are the same. Repeatable excellence because of these checklist processes on how you do this stuff, right? So it's the same every time, so that it has proof confirming the brand, because if you didn't have solid checklists here, the brand would fall apart. It would just be an idea because it wasn't confirmed through experience, repeatable experience. Every time I get that experience, I deliver upon that goal. So the more checklists you have, the more refining you have, the more people that you have that are using the checklist, the more you can refine this, the better your processes. And then you have a series of checklists that fit together in the execution of these different goals. So your checklists are constantly tying back to this content. The content is there driven off of execution, so that your checklists, you take the best execution articles of people who have followed it, and then you embed them directly as how-tos as part of the checklist, and you may find and swap and replace any ones as other people go through until you keep, this content marketing actually ends up polishing your checklists until they're so bright and shiny and smooth that anyone who wants to execute any one of these goal, A, B, or C, they're going to go through this checklist because so many people have gone through the checklist. You've polished it so nice and it's very efficient, and then you've gotten cited in the other places that have the highest authority, and they say, yeah, this is the way to do it. Now you become the de facto authority. And then you have a company around it, and that's how personal branding moves into content marketing at the company level, right? Personal branding at the user level becomes content marketing at the company level, because then you have a process, and that's what the transition point is. It's the process that allows you to go from just Dave LaPlante, who's one dude who writes a blog post every day and films a video here and there, to a scalable thing where you have a whole community. Not like demand media, people writing content to trick the engines, but like people who are actually believing in this. They're all sharing checklists with one another, and everyone's benefiting from each other in a Borg-like sort of way, And then other people are adding to this pyramid, and they may like add this other thing. It just goes bigger and bigger. That's what you do.
Man, I just feel like so many people are missing the why.
Without the why, there's nothing.
You can get ingrained with making checklists, but again, without the why. That's just...
So for us, our why is creating jobs for young people, for young adults. So we believe so passionately in there that we will share everything we have. We'll share out this stuff. We don't make any money, right? I'm sharing this with you.
This is like unbelievable, man. I appreciate it. Man. It's what you know. It's what you know is the foundation. And like it's crazy. It's mind-boggling. It's blowing my mind.
A lot of people
don't have a good foundation like this.
Madonna blew my mind, and some people say knowledge is power. I say knowledge is love, and because she said. Like, I would have thought this would be like a Gandhi quote or something, but it was actually Madonna that said, to know me is to love me, and to love me is to know me. Because if you really love someone or you love something, you're going to want to know everything about that. You want to suck in everything that you can.
Right.
And so the reverse is true, because if you don't have deep knowledge about something, then I'm going to call your bluff and say, you don't really love it.
Right.
So there's no way to love it without having deep knowledge. There's no way to have deep knowledge without actually loving it. So if you truly believe in this mission, you will just, without needing to know that there's actually a technique behind this, you will have sought out all this content and read all the books and seek out all these other experts. You just will have done that because you love it so much anyway. That's a crappy little heart that I'm drawing, but you see what I'm trying to do here, okay? Right? So you're right. If people can start with this, everything else can fall into place, because this is the heart that beats, that pumps, that drives this whole machine, so they don't give up after a few weeks saying, I tried this thing for 90 days and I'm not rich, so I'm giving up. Because I thought this was a shortcut to get rich.
As soon as I come across any type of information like this, it makes me want even more. Like, do you ever get that feeling? Yeah,
you're a junkie. You're a total junkie when it comes to like this productivity stuff. And
but I've read also, like, don't be self-help junkie. Don't do too much of one thing could be a bad thing. Like, going too much into one specific thing could be a bad thing. Like, loving it that much.
Well, if you love it, you're going to put it into practice. Yeah. Some people, they just sit here and they read and they read and they never get around to doing.
Right.
And they never around to putting. And until you teach people, your knowledge isn't really like cemented in real deep.
So if you have a process, yes, use it, spend a lot of time doing it, love it, but then have the process to continue. There's growth to it.
Yeah.
Right.
And then other people get recruited to the mission.
Damn, Dennis.
Yeah, there you go. You
Respect.
can turn that into like a webinar if you want.
Yeah, man. Dude. Oh, man. This
You're
is
running powerful.
cool.